He was the last person anyone in that Marble Abid hotel expected to see. A man with scuffed shoes, a threadbare jacket, and tired eyes that had known too many winters. The night desk clerk glanced up, the polite smile already practiced on his face. Then it faltered when the man stepped forward and asked for a room. The smile slipped into a thin line. The manager appeared, palms pressed to her clipboard, and for a moment the polished world of chandeliers and concierge cards held its breath. You could see the judgment in the small things. The way the bellhop pretended to be busy, the way the manager checked the register twice before answering, the way the room rate was announced with a careful apologetic tilt, as if poverty itself might soil the linens. The man, his name was Arthur Reed, though no one asked, met each glance with a quiet dignity. He did not raise his voice, he did not plead. He simply said a room, please, and placed a worn bill on the counter. That's when the first insult landed, small and sharp. We don't accept that kind of payment here, the manager said, her tone clinical. We prefer pre-authorized cards. You might want to try the shelter down the street. Laughter fluttered like cheap confetti around the velvet ropes. Arthur's hand tightened on the bill, so slowly it looked like a practiced restraint. He could have argued. He could have stormed out and never returned. Instead, he smiled, not the smile of a man beaten, but the small, steady smile of someone who had learned not to give others the satisfaction of watching him break. One of the young staff, Maya, watched from the side. She had arrived at the hotel at dawn every day for months, balancing late college classes and double shifts. She knew what exhaustion looked like. She had met hunger in the hollow of midnight. When Arthur's eyes flicked to a paper cup under the counter, Maya slipped one from the stack and, without permission, poured him tea and handed it over with a whisper. On the house, it was a quiet rebellion. The manager caught Maya's gesture and scolded her in a soft but venomous whisper. We have standards, she mouthed. We can't be seen. Maya looked down, cheeks hot, but Arthur only nodded, grateful, and drank. The lobby resumed its choreography of clipped steps and discreet looks, as if the brief human tenderness had never interrupted it. That night, Arthur did not stay in the cheapest room. He walked out into the city and disappeared into the rain, the kindness of a stranger tucked into his pocket like a secret. The staff returned to their routines, some smug, some uncomfortable, almost certain that life would fold neatly back into its expected order. What none of them suspected, not even Maya, was that the shabby coat and quiet eyes hid a truth that would turn every polite assumption inside out, and that, the next morning the hotel would wake to a revelation that would make everyone who had judged think twice about the cost of a single moment's cruelty. The next morning, the hotel lobby shimmered in its usual perfection, brass polished, perfume hanging in the air, a pianist playing soft jazz near the bar. Everything appeared normal until the staff noticed something unusual. The general manager, usually composed and efficient, was pacing nervously near the entrance, clutching a file of guest information like it was a life preserver. Word spread quickly among the employees. A new investor is coming, whispered one of the waiters. Apparently, he's bought a big stake in the hotel chain. Everyone straightened up, their smiles more polished than ever. Maya adjusted her uniform and hurried to the front desk, her stomach tight with nerves. She didn't want to repeat yesterday's embarrassment. Outside, a sleek black car pulled up. The chauffeur stepped out, opened the door, and then time stopped. The man who stepped onto the red carpet wasn't a billionaire in a designer suit. It was him. Arthur. The same man they'd laughed at the night before. His jacket was gone, replaced by a tailored navy suit. His posture was steady, his eyes sharp. The doorman froze, unsure whether to bow or speak. The manager blinked twice, convinced it was some cruel joke. Arthur walked inside with calm authority, every step deliberate. The same people who had mocked him now lowered their eyes. He stopped near the reception desk, where the manager stood speechless. Good morning, Arthur said, his tone even. I'd like to check on the service quality here. I was told the management takes special pride in how it treats scarce. His words cut with polite precision. The general manager stammered. Yes, sir. We didn't realize. Arthur raised a hand. You didn't have to realize anything. You simply had to be decent. He turned his gaze to Maya, who stood frozen, her hand still holding a stack of registration cards. But not everyone here has forgotten how to be human. The lobby went silent. Even the pianist stopped mid-note. Maya's eyes widened as Arthur smiled gently at her. Then, in front of everyone, he handed her a white envelope. You offered kindness when it costs you something. I noticed that. You'll find your reward inside, and a letter of recommendation for the management training program. I think you'll go far. Maya's lips trembled. She could barely whisper a thank you. Arthur turned back to the staff. As for the rest of you, he sighed softly, today, you learn that respect has nothing to do with wealth and that humility is the true luxury. The manager's face strained of color. She stuttered apologies, offering to personally escort him to the penthouse suite, but Arthur shook his head. No. I don't need a suite. I just needed to see who you are when you think no one is watching. And with that, he began walking toward the elevator. Cameras flashed from guests who had started filming. The clip of the mystery billionaire owner was about to go viral within hours. But Arthur didn't care. He wasn't after attention. He was after a lesson that might finally make people remember what dignity looks like. The real twist, though, was still waiting upstairs, where Arthur's late wife's portrait hung, and where his reason for disguising himself as a poor man would come to light. When Arthur reached the top floor, the heavy doors of the penthouse opened quietly. Sunlight spilled across the marble floor, illuminating a large portrait of a graceful woman. Her smile soft, her eyes kind. It was Margaret, Arthur's late wife. She had co-founded the hotel chain with him decades ago. Back then, it wasn't luxury or glamour that mattered to them. It was dignity, compassion, and fairness. They had started with a simple idea: treat everyone as family, no matter their wealth or background. But as the empire grew, that vision was lost. Arthur had stepped away from daily operations after Margaret's death, hoping the next generation of managers would protect what they built together. What he saw last night, though, shattered that faith. The way they mocked him, the way they looked at the struggling that wasn't Margaret's legacy. It was everything she stood against. Arthur took a seat by the large window overlooking the city. The skyline stretched endlessly before him, glass towers glinting in the afternoon sun. He pulled out his phone and made a call to the board of directors. His voice was calm but firm. I saw everything I needed to, he said. We've forgotten who we are. Effective immediately. I want every staff member retrained. Customer care, empathy, dignity. Everything Margaret believed in must return. Anyone who treats people the way I was treated yesterday will not represent this brand. On the other end of the line, the directors were silent. They knew this wasn't just a command, it was a turning point. Meanwhile, down in the lobby, Maya still stood in disbelief. She opened the envelope Arthur had handed her. Inside was a handwritten note. You reminded me of my wife, Margaret, kind to everyone, even when no one's watching. The world needs more people like you. Never stop being that light. Tears welled in her eyes. For a moment, she didn't see herself as a simple receptionist, but as someone who mattered, someone who had made a difference. News of the undercover hotel owner spread across social media like wildfire. The video of Arthur's calm but powerful confrontation racked up millions of views. Comments flooded in. That's how a real leader teaches a lesson. Respect is priceless. The kindness of one woman changed everything. By the next day, the hotel lobby looked completely different. The staff greeted every guest warmly, whether they wore a suit or torn jeans. And on the front desk sat a new plaque with Margaret's favorite quote engraved on it. Luxury isn't about what you have, it is about how you make others feel. Arthur watched from the upper floor as Maya smiled at a family checking in. The same warmth that once defined his wife now lived on in this young woman. He knew then that the hotel's soul had been restored. As he turned to leave, he paused by Margaret's portrait and whispered, "We're back on track, love. You'd be proud." Then he walked away quietly, not as the owner of a grand empire, but as a man who had finally seen his wife's dream come alive again through one act of kindness that changed everything. And maybe that's what the world still needs. A reminder that how we treat the ones who seem small says everything about who we truly are. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to share it. Because sometimes, a single act of kindness can rewrite someone's world. Weeks passed and life at the hotel began to settle into a new rhythm, one that felt almost magical. Guests noticed it first. The same hotel that once felt cold and transactional now felt warm, human, alive. Staff smiled genuinely, not out of obligation but out of pride. Every corner seemed to carry a quiet sense of dignity. Arthur's small act of disguise had become legendary within the company. The staff called it the day the owner came as a beggar. And though Arthur rarely spoke about it, the lesson it carried became a new cornerstone for their training. One morning, as Arthur walked through the hotel lobby in his usual simple clothes, not to test anyone this time, but just to feel the place, he saw something that stopped him. A young man, maybe in his early 20s, stood at the counter with a nervous look. His clothes were wrinkled, his hands trembling as he explained he had lost his wallet and needed a place to stay for the night. The receptionist hesitated, glancing at the line of waiting guests. Before Arthur could step forward, Maya appeared. "Sir," she said gently, "please take a seat. We'll figure this out together." Arthur smiled faintly. It was the same kindness he'd seen in her the first day, uncalculated, pure. Later, Maya found him standing by the elevator. "Mr. Arthur, I didn't see you come in." He grinned, just making sure the heart of this place is still beating. She laughed softly. "It's beating strong, sir, because of you." Arthur shook his head. "Because of you, Maya. You reminded me what this business, what life is really about." That afternoon, a local newspaper ran a story titled Asterisk, From Beggar to Billionaire, the owner who tested his own empire. Asterisk, the journalist had heard about Arthur's disguise and the viral video. They called it one of the most inspiring moments of corporate humility in years. Soon after, Arthur received letters not from investors or executives, but from ordinary people. Single mothers who worked double shifts, veterans starting small businesses, young workers saving every penny to get by. Each letter said the same thing. Asterisk, your story reminded me that goodness still matters. Asterisk, Arthur read them all quietly, feeling the weight of those words. He had spent years managing numbers, hotels, and profits, but this, he realized, was the real success. The kind that can't be measured in dollars. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Arthur stood outside the hotel entrance, watching guests come and go. Maya joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You ever think about retiring, sir?" she asked with a smile. Arthur chuckled. "I already tried that once. Didn't work out so well." She laughed too, and for a long moment, they just stood there, 2 people from different worlds, united by something bigger than either of them. Arthur looked up at the glowing hotel sign and said quietly, "This isn't just a building anymore. It's a promise to never forget the value of kindness." And as the nightlights reflected on the glass doors, the story of the poor old man who turned out to be the hotel owner became something more. A reminder that sometimes the richest hearts are hidden behind the simplest faces. Asterisk, asterisk. If you believe kindness is more powerful than pride, share this story and let someone's world change because of you. Asterisk, asterisk. That evening, as the hotel quieted and the last guests checked out, Arthur walked through the lobby alone. The chandeliers cast soft pools of golden light on the marble floor, and the faint scent of polished wood and fresh flowers filled the air. He paused at the reception desk, watching the empty chairs where families had laughed earlier, and remembered the first day he had walked through these doors in his beggar's disguise. The memory made him smile, not out of pride, but out of awe at how a single choice could ripple through so many lives. In the back office, the staff were finishing up their nightly tasks, exchanging stories and laughter. Maya lingered a little longer, organizing papers with her usual calm efficiency. Arthur approached her quietly. "You did well today," he sighed softly. Maya looked up startled, then smiled. "We did well. We all did. You just reminded us why it matters." Arthur nodded, a deep sense of fulfillment settling in his chest. "Sometimes people think power comes from wealth or position," he said. "But true power comes from understanding, from seeing people, really seeing them. You reminded me of that." She laughed lightly, shaking her head. I think you reminded all of us, sir. Just then, a knock came at the back door. A young woman, clearly exhausted and tearful, stood there clutching a small bag. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling. "I heard about your hotel, about the man who came as a beggar. I don't know where else to go." Arthur exchanged a glance with Maya. Without hesitation, he stepped forward. "You're welcome here," he said. "We'll help you, just like we help everyone who walks through these doors." For the first time in years, Arthur felt a true sense of purpose that had nothing to do with business metrics, reports, or profit margins. It was about humanity, compassion, and the simple acts that make life meaningful. As the staff gathered to welcome the young woman, Arthur stepped back, watching quietly. In that moment, the hotel was no longer just a building or a business. It had become a sanctuary, a place where dignity was preserved. Kindness was rewarded, and every guest could feel seen and valued. The story of the man who had disguised himself as a beggar to test the hearts of his employees became more than just an anecdote. It became a living example that humility, empathy, and integrity are lessons worth teaching, and that sometimes the richest surprises come from the simplest gestures. Arthur stood in the lobby, the warm light bathing him like a gentle reminder. He had come full circle. From a man testing his own staff to a man ensuring that every life that crossed his threshold was treated with care, respect, and understanding. And as the doors closed for the night, the hotel seemed to breathe with a quiet contentment, echoing the truth that had been proven time and again. Kindness, when genuine, always comes back to change lives in ways we can never fully imagine. If this story moved you, share it with someone today. Remind the world that empathy and understanding are the greatest wealth of all. Evening settled over the hotel, casting long shadows across the grand lobby. The events of the day weighed heavily on everyone, yet a sense of wonder lingered in the air. Arthur, still in his humble beggar's disguise, watched silently as Maya guided the young woman through the check-in process. The woman's eyes shone with relief, gratitude overflowing in the way she clutched her small bag as though it were a lifeline. Arthur's heart swelled with a mix of pride and humility. Today had proven more than he could have imagined. His experiment wasn't about catching anyone off guard or testing loyalty. It was about uncovering the true character of those around him. And he had witnessed generosity, courage, and compassion in ways that no financial success could ever measure. He moved quietly through the lobby, noticing subtle gestures. A staff member helping an elderly guest with her coat, another offering a warm cup of tea to a weary traveler. Laughter shared between colleagues who had once been strangers. These small moments of humanity felt monumental in their significance. Arthur realized that his disguise had given him a perspective he never would have gained as the visibly wealthy owner. Then, a soft knock at the office door drew his attention. It was one of the younger employees who had been hesitant about his unconventional methods. "Sir," she began nervously, I just wanted to say thank you. Not for the money or the job, but for trusting us, for believing in our goodness, even when we doubted ourselves." Arthur smiled gently. "The world often measures people by the wrong standards," he replied. "Wealth, status, power, these are temporary. What lasts is the goodness we show to others, and the courage to act on it." As the hotel settled into a peaceful evening, Arthur finally removed his beggar's cloak, revealing the man he truly was. The staff gasped slightly, not out of fear, but awe. They had known him for only a day in this humble form. Yet in that short time, they had discovered lessons about empathy, humility, and humanity that would stay with them forever. The young woman he had welcomed earlier returned from her room with tears in her eyes. "I don't even know how to thank you," she whispered. "You've saved me and given me hope again." Arthur placed a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't need saving, your courage carried you here. I just made sure the door was open when you arrived." In that moment, the hotel ceased to be just a place of business. It became a sanctuary. Each guest, each staff member, each small act of kindness contributed to a greater story, one of human connection, resilience, and the power of seeing beyond appearances. As the night deepened, Arthur looked out the large windows, the city lights of Manhattan twinkling like stars below. The journey of one man testing hearts had transformed an entire hotel into a place where dignity, generosity, and understanding reigned supreme. And for the first time in years, he felt a peace that no wealth could ever buy. If this story inspired you, share it today. Let it remind us all that empathy, compassion, and kindness are the true treasures of life.